I think I ended up giving it 2 stars. I should probably check. The logic got a really low score for me. This wasn't great for me, unfortunately. I really wanted to love it. I had such high hopes. I had such high expectations. It was one of my most anticipated books. I have no less than 3 5 stars and 2 4 stars. Hello my angels, welcome back to another video. My name is Ro and today we are going through my March and April wrap up. So I was just going to do an April wrap up today and then I realised I only read 3 books in March and that was why I didn't do a wrap up in March. So what I'm going to do now instead is do both for you because why not? There's only 3 books to add on. So respectively in March I read 639 pages across 3 books and in April I read 1,627 pages across 6 books. Overall across the 2 months I read 3 audiobooks, 3 ebooks and 3 physical books, so all exactly the same amount of each, which is pretty good, pretty cool I think. Going through them from the beginning, the first book that I read was The Bone Ships and this was for the Backlist Book Club that Cassidy set up over at Covers with Cassidy. I sped read this on audio. I did not enjoy it. I feel like absolutely nothing happened. I honestly feel like I don't have loads to say. If you want to check out the live show, it is on Cassidy's channel where we do discuss it, but I didn't feel like a lot happened. I didn't care about any of the characters. I think I ended up giving it 2 stars. I should probably check. Yeah, 2.5 if we want to be generous. I do feel like I liked the idea more than anything rather than like the execution. And I did like the writing style itself. It was quite, I'm trying to remember back now, it was quite a while ago, nearly more than 2 months ago now I read it. The writing style was definitely unique and I did enjoy that side of things. I just felt like there was no development of characters or like no real good logic to why things were happening or decisions that characters were making. And I was bored, so I ended up listening to it, zoning out, listening to a bit more, zoning out a bit more. And by the end, I didn't know what the fuck was going on, not gonna lie. If I had paid a bit more attention, I feel like if I had tried a bit more to pay attention, then I maybe would have enjoyed it a bit more, but I wouldn't have thought it would be more than a 3, let's be honest. So that was The Bone Ships. I haven't hauled it since. And I did drop out of doing the rest of the books because I didn't want to spend money on them. However, we are back doing the Backlist Book Club in June. We've taken the break for May and June we are starting The Ninth Reign. I can't remember the name of the author, but it's the next Broken Binding sub book actually, so I will be receiving that in June and reading it. And I think the live show then will be close to the beginning of July. Next up is Crashed Out by Tessa Bailey. This was an ebook. It was just free on Kindle Unlimited. I think during this time, it was when I was just doing my resit for my exam that I failed twice. And I just didn't want to read and smut was kind of just taking the stress off everything for me. This one, I don't think I ended up giving it much. I think I gave it a 3. Yeah, exactly a 3. It's like a best friend's little brother type situation, but they're both older now, obviously. And she's kind of like he was in love with her from a young age, had a crush on her from a young age kind of thing as well. And he's like a big superstar, rock star, and she's kind of in a small town and stuff like that. Tessa Bailey loves small town romance. She loves writing it. And I love reading it. I think it was great. I think the smut was what gave it the 3 stars, to be honest, because Tessa Bailey does write really good smut. But like the characterization wasn't super there for me and I wasn't super like hooked on the main characters and like rooting for them. I just wanted them to have more sex because I just didn't care about them. So that was Crashed Out, and that was in March as well. And then also in March, the last book I read was Little Thieves. I think this was my book club pick. I feel like, I don't know why I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was the book club pick. And this ended up getting a 3.5. I really loved like the writing style and the overall setting and characters. Well, I feel like some characters could have been less because I feel like there were extra characters kind of shoved in for convenience is the word I would use for some things, and then there were more characters than I think were needed. I think I would have liked a smaller cast because I wanted to spend more time with certain characters and then things were happening, and there was also a sapphic relationship that kind of just came out of nowhere and had 0 development as well, or 0 page time. It was just kind of mentioned randomly that it had just happened and I was not super happy with that. I would have liked a bit more focus on that. I did like the tension between the 2 main characters and them kind of realising they fancied each other. There is also demisexual rep in this for the main character, which was interesting to read. I really enjoyed kind of seeing that perspective of things, because I never truly really understood what demisexual meant until kind of reading this book, but I definitely understood it more having read the book and feel, you know, I agree with it almost. Like I can see why that is a thing and why people identify that way, because it is a very specific way of feeling attraction. So very much was enjoying that. Yeah, so 3.5 in total. The logic got a really low score for me, but the writing got a really high score, and the atmosphere got quite a high score as well. But the logic and maybe the intrigue as well got quite low scores from me on this. It just, like, I feel like the execution wasn't great of the plot. I feel like the plot was just a typical, oh, like mystery, kind of murder mystery, or like bad guy, and we're gonna go on an adventure and go on like, you know, an investigation, like Scooby-Doo-esque investigation, which happens a lot in YA books. I don't think this was even meant to be YA. I think it was meant to be more towards the adult end of things. It definitely was not. It was definitely more YA than adult to me personally. I still definitely enjoyed it, and I think I will be purchasing the sequel just because I really liked the interaction between the two main characters. And the thing that was wrong was more for me was more kind of to do with the rushing of the plot elements. So I would definitely like to read these characters again, possibly when the author has like got a bit more, you know, writing under her belt and a bit more experience, I guess, and hopefully the next one will be better. I think it is a duology, but I'm not sure. That was it for March. So I did 1 audio, 1 physical, 1 ebook in March, and that was it. Not a great month for reading in terms of ratings, though. It was a 2.5, a 3 and a 3.5, which averages out at 3 which is not great. You know, not fabulous. But moving on to April, we have a very, very good month in April. I have no less than 3 5 stars and 2 4 stars. In fact, 2 4.5 stars. So they were very, very close to being 5 stars. So April, I think, has been my best reading month yet in terms of ratings. I did also have my highest rated book of the year so far in terms of core pile rating, but that is in May. So you're gonna have to wait for that one. I'll probably be filming it not that long now. Words are hard. After my exams, I guess, so 6th of June-ish, you will get my May wrap-up. I read 6 books in April. The first 3 were 5 stars. So I had a really good start to April. So the first book that I read in April was Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wilsner. This is an arc of a romance book that is a sapphic romance book, and it is about a college student who, when she goes to college, it's like family weekend or something, like they're all visiting them all in college, and she meets this woman at a bar who's like an older woman, and they basically hook up. And the next morning she goes to have breakfast with her like roommate and her roommate's mum, and it turns out that the woman she hooked up with the night before is the roommate's mum. And chaos ensues, and hijinks ensue, and smut ensues, and it's so good. It's so good. I've literally not read sapphic smut like this in such a long time. It's really, really good. I think it comes out in October. I would highly, highly recommend requesting the arc on NetGalley. It is just really great, and I found myself really rooting for the characters and really falling in love with both of the main characters, really feeling for them and their situation and like what was going on, and and the tension, oh my god. So tense. It's a lot of angst as well. And a lot of like realistic problems that you would get with an age gap like that. So I really kind of appreciated that and liked seeing that realistic side of things, the problems that they ran into. So yeah, 5 stars. Hope you enjoy it. Everyone should. Next up, I read A Psalm for the Wild-Built. This is my very first book. You can't really see it because it's so thin, but it's the very first book that, if I can find it, that I decided to, oh my god, it's too bright. This is the very first book that I decided to highlight. It's too bright, but it's fine. So I highlighted, I wrote notes in the margins, and I tabbed it up. This is the very first book that I've ever done that to. I decided to do this because, well, I mean, I didn't decide beforehand. I started reading it, And then as I was reading it, it was so well written and so just like the writing style, it reminded me of like Love, Death and Robots, like that kind of thing. This is like a Love, Death and Robots episode basically in one. If you don't know that, it's an anthology on Netflix. It's really, really good, of like animated things about love, death and robots. So good, very dystopian, all of them are. They're all different stories, different animation styles. Amazing, you should check it out. This reminds me of that, which means you should all check it out if you loved A Psalm for the Wild Built, and I know a lot of people do love A Psalm for the Wild Built. Another 5 stars. Are we surprised? No. I love the representation in this in terms of just like, not only that the main character was non-binary, but like sort of the idea that robots like became their own people and the humans actually were not assholes, which is not realistic, but they were not assholes and they just like let them go, and they just let them go into the wilderness and like work out their own shit and do their own thing. It's just so fascinating and it's so well written. It's really, really making me want to pick up The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I've been putting off for about 5 years at this point. But this has made me really want to pick it up. I know it won't be the same thing and it won't be the same blah, but I'm assuming the writing style will be similar. So very much looking forward to picking up those now, that series, because I love space opera, I love space, I love dystopian, I love sci-fi. I'm just like, I'm very whimsical with my sci-fi. This is a great example of that. I don't know, I just really loved it. It was just very hard-hitting for as small as it was, as short as it was, and I just really loved the writing style, and the robot was so funny and adorable and cute, and I just loved it. Everyone should read it. You should go read it right now. Put it on your wish list, please. Oh, I forgot to hold up Little Thieves when I was talking about it. Sorry, George. He's gonna have to put the thing up on there now. The next book that was a 5-star for me was This Woven Kingdom. This is the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen come out of a monthly box, and I'm so happy that I own it because this book was a 5 stars. Now, this book in particular, I have seen some kind of mediocre ratings from people I know, like people I don't know, but I personally, I don't know if it was just like right book at the right time, but I loved this. I really thought that it did the most. The tension between the two main characters, the romance, chef's kiss, and the ending, so explosive, so like had me hooked for the next one, and not in like a cliffhangery way. Like, it's technically a cliffhanger, but I was just like, oh my god, I'm so intrigued. I really, really want to see what happens next. And I'm so sad we don't even have like a date or a title or anything for the sequel, but I will be keeping my eyes peeled. And I really hope we get a matching edition because I'm gonna cry if we don't. I think that's the reason I'm holding on to the Waterstones edition of this, in case we don't get a matching edition. I've got it up there on my sprayed edge shelf, but it's just red sprayed edges from Waterstones, and I was like, oh, I can get rid of it because it's a duplicate, but then I was like, oh, but what if they don't do a matching one? Anyway, lots more thoughts about this are in my vlog that I just put up the other day for the book box battle. This is the Illumicrate January pick, and that is why I read this in April. Don't at me, please. I'm getting round to it, I promise. This was so, so good. So there are more in-depth thoughts there, I promise. But this was a 5-star for me. It's probably on the lower end. Yeah, it's on the lower end of the 5-star. It's one of those ones that I wouldn't say I'd recommend to absolutely everyone. But if you are in the mood for tense, angsty romance with like a side dish of like political stuff that's not really the main focus, but it's just there anyway, then you will really like this. I would say this reminds me of City of Brass, but with City of Brass, it's like, it's a political fantasy with a side of romance, whereas this is like fantasy romance with a side of political fantasy. That's kind of how it's kind of swapped those ends of the scale sort of thing. That's how I feel about this anyway. I just really liked it. There's nothing really else to say. There are a good few quotes in it. They speak like Bridgerton in it, in terms of like old-timey, sir, please do not speak to me this way kind of esque language, which I loved. And it's free on Scribd. I listened to it on audio. Apparently though, when people have like read this, the foiling has come off. I guess like, because it's a different, I hesitate to say like, it's because it's, you can sweat holding this, if that makes sense. Like your hands get sweaty, but that's not really relevant, I guess. Next up, I read These Violent Delights. I also have a vlog up for this. Who is she? She's great. She's doing videos. She's back. Here we go. This was fabulous. This was a 4.5 star for me. It was definitely very close to the 5. I feel like there was some kind of tension missing for me and some maybe more development of other characters that was missing for me. But the main two characters, the tension between them and the like being forced to like have to dance together or like forced to work together even though the other broke their heart years and years ago and blah blah blah, and the blood feud and everything. I would definitely say this is more on the older end of YA in terms of like how much blood and gore and stuff is in it, because it is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. It's gang wars, it's in Shanghai, there's guns, there's knives, people are dying. I actually really didn't like the fantasy more element of this. I think that the logic was very low for it. If they had kept it, if Chloe Gong had kept it to like more gang stuff and more political gang stuff rather than there being some kind of fantastical element going on, if she had kept it more like Jade City, I think I would have given this 5 stars, because the fantastical element or the fantasy element was not developed enough for me. It was more supernatural rather than fantasy, I'd say. I won't go into details because see that's spoilers, but I do have a spoiler-free vlog, so you should go and check it out because you will see all of my in-depth thoughts as we go. And 4.5 stars, and I'm excited to read the sequel. I probably am going to vlog the sequel because everyone loved me vlogging the first one so much. But after my exams, because this is what my life is like these days. Everything is around exams, but that's fine. Yeah, I don't really have like loads more to say. I did like the ending a lot, and I did like the elements of the Romeo and Juliet story that Chloe Gong like pulled into this and weaved into this. I feel like it was done very artfully and very, you know, subtly, rather than like, oh haha, here's the thing, you know, like from really Romeo and Juliet. It wasn't quite so much like that. There was maybe one thing that was like that, but not the most of it, not the majority. These Violent Delights, I'm actually really happy because I went into this with really low expectations. I heard really mixed things and I really liked it. So April was a good month. The next book that I read was Anyaka and the Academy of the Sun. This is an arc. I can't remember when it's coming out though. This was the only book that really disappointed me in the month of April. I gave it 3 stars straight. It was just straight down the middle 3 stars. I feel like the idea was a really good one, and I really liked the commentary on about Anyaka's hair and basically what thousands and millions of black people go through every day, where people wanting, white people most likely, always wanting to touch their hair, asking to touch it, touching without permission, making fun of it, things like that. I really enjoyed that aspect of the story. I really enjoyed seeing Nigeria and like the culture growing up there and the different kind of family dynamics that they have as well. I also really enjoyed seeing the different characters' talents and what they were going through. I did feel like a lot of it was a bit rushed. I didn't really enjoy the trials. Happened over like 3 pages. They happened in literally 1 chapter. The trials were really rushed, and I know that's me. You know me, I really love trials, so if they're in there, I feel like they got to be a big part of it, otherwise it feels really rushed and like almost no point in them being there at all. But that element I think should have been a bigger part of the book, because the rest of it was not much was going on, and then suddenly things were happening and suddenly there was just people there and people attacking and blah blah blah, and I did feel some of the plot twists were kind of seen not even just a mile away, but like 1,000 miles away. I do try and keep in mind that like these books are for children, so what might be obvious to me will not be obvious to a child. But then when I was a child, I think I would have seen that as well. But that's also part and parcel of like having read so many books, that these kind of tropes or like usual plot twists and things do start to come up, and you see them come up in lots of books, so that's when you start to see them coming a mile off. But yeah, this wasn't great for me, unfortunately. I really wanted to love it. I had such high hopes. I had such high expectations. It was one of my most anticipated books. Obviously, I requested an arc. I was very excited. But 3 stars, honestly, is not a bad rating. It's one of my lower ratings in general from the year. But if I really don't like something, I will rate it 1 or 2 stars. But 3 stars, I think, is like, I personally had quite a few issues with it, but I can see why lots of people would give it 5, and it may be also to do with my mood at the time, who knows, but like 3 stars is still a really good rating from me, so I don't want anyone to be like, oh my god, why didn't you like it? It's like, I didn't hate it, I just didn't really love it. That's kind of what a 3-star is for me. And then the last book is Only a Monster. So this was also in my January book box battle vlog. Again, in the description, in the cards, wherever, please go check it out, because there will be much more in-depth thoughts there for this and for This Woven Kingdom. So this was the last book that I read in April. This I got a 4.5 stars, so again, it was really close to a 5, but there was that one kind of spark missing for me. The logic, again, it's always the logic, and I'm a very logical person, so when something doesn't make sense within even your fantasy world, I don't care about like if it is fantastical, but you have to like have it make sense within your own rules and boundaries of your own world that you've created. That's kind of my hang up with things. I'm happy to suspend disbelief, and I mean, why would I read fantasy otherwise? But having said that, there are a few things in here that kind of just really don't make sense. But I liked it so much anyway that I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed, I guess, like the group dynamic, but not just the group dynamic. The fact that like she was in love with one boy and then something happens and then there's another boy and it's like, oh my god, like it was kind of like a love triangle but done in a more subtle and more realistic way, if that makes sense. They were both almost an enemies to lovers type deal, which I've never read before. I think it was very unique, and I do think that the setting and like premise of this book is quite unique in general as well, with the idea of monsters. And I do say in my vlog, I wish she had used a different word for monsters, because they're not monstrous in any way. So I think she's trying to go more for a metaphorical type thing because of the fact that they hurt people. I say in quotations because, I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, but they hit people, but it's not monstrous. It really does set a different precedent when you think that it's going to be monstrous going in. You think vampires, werewolves, you think like people that are killing people, blah, blah, blah. But it's not quite like that. And then not a lot of it's explained. Like the powers themselves don't really make any sense within that world. But again, I didn't really care. I did really like it. I really liked the interactions between the characters. I enjoyed the main character. She is actually half, I think, Korean. The author is Chinese, Malaysian and Maltese, but I think, oh no, sorry, it was Vietnamese, I think. The main character is half Vietnamese. I can't find it, sorry. I thought it was on the first page for some reason. But I think it might be half Vietnamese, I'm not sure though. But yeah, I enjoyed that side of things. Having like the split of like one human and one monstrous parent, and also one white and one, I think, Vietnamese parent. It might be Chinese. I'm really sorry, I feel so bad that I can't fucking remember. I really enjoyed it, and I'm actually quite intrigued for the sequel. I thought the ending was quite good. It was quite open-ended. I wouldn't say it was a cliffhanger. I mean, definitely it was not a cliffhanger, but it was definitely open-ended enough that I was intrigued to see what would happen next, or what could even possibly happen next, because everything was wrapped up quite well. But yeah, Only a Monster. Quite a unique YA fantasy, I thought. It is set in the modern day, if anyone didn't know, and it's set in London as well. There are a few things, like the author is from America, so there were a few words here and there that didn't make sense in like an English set book, but I kind of glossed over those. They said stanched instead of staunched and things like that, like just small things that they do pop out to me, but I kind of, you know, just kind of try to ignore it. So yeah, overall, a really great couple of months for me in terms of quality. So quality over quantity, you know, guys, like that's the mantra. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this. I do really hope you enjoyed. Leave me a little star emoji in the comments if you were here but you didn't really have anything to say but wanted to let me know that you were here. Make sure you subscribe so you get all the future content from me in your inbox. All of my links are in the description, including my Patreon, and if you don't know what goes on my Patreon, then this is what you're missing out on. Will you pass me a tomato and an onion? I can't stop. Oh, no! We fucked this up already. I really fucked it up this time, didn't I, my dear? Speaking of my Patreon, I want to give a huge shout out to everyone at my Daisy tier. So that is Becca, Meg, Rachel, Lisa, Lydia, Mercy, Sarah, Tori, Liv, Adinda, Celeste, Britt, Marloose, Kay, Hannah, William, Chris, Andy, Lauren, Kate, Kendra, Ashley, Frog, Lynn, Amy, Jenny, Hattie, Katie, Aslaug, and Chloe. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!